So this is part 2 of my interview with the guys at Clemson at the Voice of College Football. I talked to Tiger Paul Craven in the first video. Now moving on to his co-host, a friend of the show, been a friend of mine for a while, Jordan Bowman. I'm going to bring him on here in just a second, and I want you to go check out those guys, Clemson at the Voice of College Football. Jordan, thank you so much for coming on the show, working out the schedule. How's everything going for you other than the team letting you down?
It's been going pretty good, man. I've gotten a hard time from my coworkers because they know I'm a massive Clemson fan. A couple of them watch the show, so they've been giving me hell. But other than that, man, it's kind of one of those things you got to move through. It's just like life. You got to move on. You can't let the team get you down. And there's still more ball games to be played, but obviously we have a lot to talk about with the state of this program and kind of where we're feeling. So, but I'm happy to be here, man.
Always good to have you on. Everybody, as I said, go check out Clemson at the Voice of College Football. You'll see Jordan and Tiger Paul Craven. So let's dive right in, Jordan. What is it with Clemson having long periods of time to prepare for a good football team and still losing? For instance, Georgia, they had Clemson's full attention since the bowl game against Kentucky in December. They had a bye the week before playing Louisville. Arguably, the best team that Clemson had, without a doubt, the best team Clemson had played since the route to Georgia. We saw what happened. The mismanagement of the play clock, the mismanagement, I say play clock, but you know what I mean, the time, there was no urgency. We went back into our shell offensively. Jordan, what is going on, dude? I mean, how do you even logically work this out?
Well, no, I mean, you broke it down pretty well. And honestly, this trend has extended, back, the last 3 seasons, really. I mean, you think back to 2022 where you're coming off a bye week after you barely survive against Syracuse, and then you're undefeated, have a bye week before you go to South Bend at the beginning of November, and Notre Dame with a backup quarterback and, injuries everywhere absolutely bullies you on both lines of scrimmage, and they dominate you in special teams, and you lose by 21 points. You go back to 2023, this past season, where you're coming off a bye week after an ugly win over Wake Forest. You think, okay, you thought that, okay, maybe this team is starting to pull it together. You go down to Miami and Coral Gables, and they absolutely bully you on the lines of scrimmage, and you end up blowing a 10-point lead in the fourth quarter and losing in overtime. And then obviously you mentioned the examples from this season. It is really hard to kind of encapsulate how just astonishing this trend has been. And the most difficult thing for me is, they talked about it in the case of this Louisville game. They talked about it leading up to this game. You have Walker Parks, one of your senior leaders. He's been here since Hunter Renfrow was a freshman. Not really, but it feels like it. And he talks about that 2022 Notre Dame game and how they went into that game expecting and feeling like they deserved to win instead of preparing and playing like they were going to win. And it's like at a certain point, when Dabo keeps talking about, it's on me, we didn't get these guys prepared enough. Like, how much of that is, how much is he truly evaluating the process and the kind of the I guess the process is the best word, that they go about in preparing this team each and every week? Because I just feel like that aspect of the program, among other things, has just been lacking. When you have this much time to prepare for an opponent and you come out that flat at home in a night game, I mean, there's really no true explanation beyond it. It starts at the top, and whatever
Right.
they're doing from a preparation and honestly a philosophical standpoint is not working. These kids are not getting it. And Dabo mentioned in his press conference today that they have kids that are, some kids are more mature than others. Some kids get it, some kids don't. But this was not nearly the problem during the playoff run. Honestly, this wasn't even that much of a problem prior to 2015. So I'm wondering what has seeped into this program in the last few seasons that has made this such just a concerning trend that they can't seem to break the cycle of. It's difficult.
You would think that losing by 31 points in the very first game of the year, having a lot of egg on your face, a lot of people saying that you were overrated. Of course, Heather Dinich most infamously said in the preseason, Clemson's overrated at number 14. I felt like Clemson should have been preseason ranked somewhere around number 19. I think they're number 19 now. And they went on that 6-game run, but I just sat there holding my breath, knowing, hey, great, you're beating bad teams, okay? That's good that you're not losing to any of them, but you still haven't proven anything. Once again, reality and logic proves us right that you have to go out and beat someone, because if every time you play a good football team, the majority of the time you lose, that says that your football team is not an overall good football team, that you fold like a lawn chair when you play a really good football team. So let's talk about this, Jordan. Going into the Louisville game, we know Brom can coach. Everybody knows Brom can coach. He outcoached Clemson the other night easily. I mean, the guy, and think about this, if he had the talent that Clemson has, can you imagine what he'd do? He comes into this game the other night, losing 3 ball games by 7 points each. You look at this Virginia Tech team, and they lost the very first game to Vanderbilt. We thought that was a joke. Vanderbilt ended up being not Vanderbilt. They lost by 7 points. The biggest head scratcher of the year, they lost by 3 points to Rutgers, but they lost to Miami by 4 points at Miami on a controversial call. And then the other night, they lost in overtime to Syracuse by 7 points. The point is, this team reminds me a lot of the Louisville team as far as their losses have been this close.
Mm-hmm.
When you think about that, you weigh that out and you're like, okay, I'm going to take my orange tinted glasses off and I'm going to be really, objective here. Why can't Virginia Tech beat Clemson?
There's nothing that says that Virginia Tech can't beat Clemson. I mean, you laid it out. I mean, both teams are really, I mean, they've had very similar seasons, as you said. And, one thing I just have noticed about this Virginia Tech team, especially in comparison to Louisville, Kyron Drones can run. So, I mean, he has that added ability in his arsenal that Tyler Shuck didn't have, although he did beat you a couple of times with his legs in some short yardage situations. And they have a really outstanding running back. They have an experienced offensive line, good receivers. And then on the defensive side, they have one of the best defensive lines in the ACC and one of the nation's leading sack leaders. So, they're going to want to do the same things, a lot of the same things that Louisville did to you, as far as, beating you up on the lines of scrimmage, and if you don't fix the special teams miscues, that's going to compound things even further, like it did last week. So that's the scary part, heading into this weekend. I'll say this. I tend to think that this team will have a more of a bounce back performance, but we don't really know that. That's just my gut feeling. But I have not seen, they responded well after the Georgia game, but again, look at the opponents you played. That App State team has shown itself to be one of the more disappointing group of 5 teams in all of college football. Defensively, they haven't been able to stop a nosebleed. So it's how much can I put stock into that result now? I gave you credit at the time, but now we're coming off this loss and we have no, sort of idea of where this team's middle is, and whether and we absolutely have no proof that they can play up to their competition when the competition gets more, capable and on your level in terms of talent and athletic ability, because you've lost both of those games where they had at least somewhat comparable athletes. Um, so that's pretty disappointing, and I don't know what to expect from there.
Now, Jordan, if my memory serves me correct, you're an engineer, am I, right?
Well, I majored in physics, and I do uh, oh goodness, I am
What you
blanking
can
on.
say. What you
No,
can say you do.
yeah, I do. Oh my gosh, I'm having a brain fart. Um,
At least it does. At least it. Hey, y'all, he's young. Wait till he gets a little older. This is gonna be fun. Well, while you're thinking about that, physics twists the mind of so many people. But the thing is that you have to take a lot of variables into consideration. That's the point,
yeah,
And if you are conveniently leaving out some variables, whatever equation, whatever project, whatever you're working on is going to end up wrong, terribly wrong in some scenarios. Looking at this Virginia Tech team and also throwing in that Drones did not play. He was injured. He did not play in this loss to Syracuse. It's being tossed up whether he'll play against Clemson. If he doesn't play against Clemson, sure, that helps the Tigers. But what do you think about our offense? Because our offense, last week, I said before the Louisville game, I said the big concern that I have is, will Clemson play a team that's going to oppose them more? That's the best team they've played since Georgia. Will we see them do what they, for some reason, do when they play a team that will actually push back on them? Will they go back in their shell offensively? I said if we see that, we could see Louisville win this game. Well, they went back in their shell. What reason do we have to believe that they will come out of their shell, not at home at 7:30, but at 3:30 in Blacksburg?
yeah. I mean, we don't know, and that's the scary part about kind of how this matchup is shaping out and what we can expect from here. And now I'm at the point where you know this team, especially when you think about kind of where they are from a health standpoint and where they are from you have to wonder where they're at from a mindset standpoint. You know, how do you not allow this past week to compound into 2023 in sort of a reverse situation? Um, so now you have to ultimately just kind of hope and pray that this team has the senior leadership that we have not really seen take over and really guide this team through adversity so far, and hope that they find a way to bounce back and parlay that into a good performance against a Virginia Tech team that obviously is extremely talented, but they also have one of the better environments in college football when they're rocking. And that, it's going to be a 3:30 kick, I think. That stadium is going to be rocking. So, that's you're no longer in the comfort of your home stadium, and you obviously got pantsed when you had that going for you. So now when the opposing crowd is against you, now what do you do?
Clemson fans began to boo in the second half. I think I even heard some boos in the first half. At one time, Clemson was down, I believe, by 19 points. Yeah, they had a bunch of yardage, but yardage supposed to lead to touchdowns. Touchdowns, well, that's what wins the game. Clemson had the ball for 16 minutes longer, no turnovers, 12 more first downs, more yardage, and they lose this game. The fans are losing it. Do we see the fans, if a reverse like you laid out there, and that's a concern that I have. We chatted a little bit about that before the video, and I'm glad you brought it up. That's a great point. If Clemson has a reverse of last season, meaning the losses came in the beginning of the season, but they turned around and went on that 4-game regular season win streak, won the bowl game for a 5th consecutive win. If we see that reversed, no one's going to, Dabo Swinney's not going to be fired, folks, and I don't want him fired. But how hot does that seat get? And how many more Tylers from Spartanburg show up in the text line and any other line that he can get a word in edgewise to Coach Sweeney.
Yeah. You know, it's going to be a really, really um, difficult, thing for Dabo to respond to, is if things, really spiral out of control. We've seen, at least during the week. I mean, even this press conference that he had today, he was like, when they were asking him about the Louisville game, he got to a point. He was like, okay, well, we were playing Virginia Tech this week, guys. Like, let's move on. Um, yeah, I'm so kind of just discombobulated and so confused as far as like what the messaging is, internally, and how he's going to respond to the external noise, because there is a lot of heat on him. As you had the strong 6-game winning streak, and now everything and all the momentum that you built up to this point is now basically out the window. So now you have to get the fan base to buy in for another time after you finished 2023 off on a strong note, and the Georgia game was extremely disappointing. So like I'm really just very, I'm just at a loss, and you can tell in my voice, like I'm scrambling to find the words to express just how disappointing this past weekend was, and also the direction and the response from Coach Sweeney to this point. I'm just I really don't know where to go from here.
I've mentioned this to other people who's been on here. Of course, Tiger Paul Craven. I've talked about this privately. I just kind of wonder, like, where is the fight? And I really don't even direct that towards the players. I see players kind of like being an employee at a business. And a lot of people can, for the most part, understand this example. I mean, it hits home. How many times have you been told what to do by your manager, by your supervisor, by your VP of whatever, by the owner of the company? You go and you do it. You did exactly what they said. Things blow up. And now it's time for you to clean up the mess that they made. That's how I see this. I see the players. I'm not saying the players have no responsibility. Of course they do. There's been missed assignments, drop passes, blah, blah, blah. But more times than not, we've seen questionable coaching across the board. We saw Wes probably catch the most heat he's caught in quite a while, even past the Georgia game this past week, because it was just like he was allowing Shuck to stand back there and kind of, even though he didn't have a massive game, him toss the ball around, enough to move the ball down the field, and then their freshman running back had 150 plus yards
Yep.
against Clemson in Death Valley at night. I'm just wondering. I mean, what is driving these statements like you just talked about? It's like, hey guys, hey, I know y'all are upset and stuff. We have to move on. Also, a statement he made. This is not verbatim, Jordan, but someone reported on one of his statements he made in his press conference that we don't control our fate anymore, but we do control our decisions and our effort. And my thought is, where was that Saturday night after a bye? I mean, to me, there's just so many disconnects here that doesn't make sense, and it's kind of bothersome. What game plan do you see working against Virginia Tech? I mean, should we go in run heavy, in your opinion? Should we try to balance it? Should we forsake these annoying passes out in the flats and just take shots down the field, even if they're playing two over the top in some form, some fashion, which for some reason bothered Clemson this past week? At Clemson's level, you should be able to out-scheme that. We do have the athletes. What do you foresee with this Virginia Tech game?
Yeah, I mean, when you look at this team and what has given them trouble this year, well, it's been teams that have played like too high safety and that shell over the top. That's what Louisville did to you, and the response should be okay. Well, that means we're just going to run the ball all over you. And when Clemson at the start of the game, they really did not commit to running the football. And I think that set a bad precedent, for the rest of that game. Eventually they got it going. Phil Maffa had some nice runs, but part of that was also Louisville just being okay from, they had a, double digit, multiple score lead. Like they're fine with you running the football. Like the time to run the football was in the first quarter when you saw that they were
Exactly.
playing you the way they did. Force their corners and their defensive backs to get involved in run support, and they just didn't do that. And the interior run blocking game was a mess to say the least. I thought they played hard, but they did not get much push, and that was really concerning because again, you're going to be facing some pretty good defensive fronts here on out, other than of course the Citadel. So shout out to El Cid. No offense. But I think offensively, it starts with running the football. You have to be able to establish the run. And I get Garrett Riley's an air raid guy, but since he's been here, he's talked about the importance and the emphasis that he wants to put in the run game, the quote unquote dirt raid as he called it. We've seen that. We saw that through the 6-game winning streak, but when there was a little bit of resistance or when you didn't have a successful run, like the first play of the game, they were fine with chucking the ball 55 times. And
Yeah.
that's not a recipe for success if teams don't have to respect your run game, especially when they're up by double digits. So I think it's beating this Virginia Tech team. It starts with running the football. If you can't run the football, they're going to play you exactly like Louisville did.
I heard from a Virginia Tech fan who said, "I hope y'all do those little dump off passes out in the flats because we will absolutely destroy y'all if you do that." And what is so sad to me is that here I am after watching this entire incredible run that Sweeney did. I mean, it was amazing what he did. The way he took over a program that was in shambles. I mean, just how everything transpired. It was like something out of a movie. And now it's like the bad sequel that the movie company or the big television company, they're like, hey, let's try to capitalize on this more, and let's do after that 2018 season where everybody's like, wow, they beat the kings of college football by 4 touchdowns and with a true freshman phenom and all this bunch of stuff. Instead of ending it there, let's keep this going, but this is going to be a really bad sequel. Not Florida State or NC State bad, but it's going to be annoying. It'll be good enough just to have some people come back and watch, but not like great. That's what I feel like I'm watching. I mean, I just feel like I see these orange jerseys come out there. They look like Clemson. They have the Fied song. They have some good players here and there, but it is just frustrating. I don't know what to expect. I don't know which personality is going to show up this weekend in Virginia Tech, but I mean, I agree with you. If they play anything like they do or they did, man, it's going to be rough. I'm going to switch gears on you. This is something that Tiger Paul Craven did not get, and I want to switch it. I want to do something fresh here. You like how I use the word fresh. Anyway, transfer portal. Not us going to the transfer portal. That's not happening unless we want to get grad assistants. I want to talk about, and I really don't have a problem with the whole transfer portal thing. I want to talk about if the season kind of turns wonky, and right now it could go either way.
Yep.
I believe that we have at least one more loss in us. It could come this weekend. It could come to the Chickens. The Chickens are playing good ball right now. You may hate it, may make you vomit a little
Oh
bit in
yeah.
your mouth, but I was watching simulcast with my oldest, who is a South Carolina fan. So as I was watching Clemson play like, well, they did the other night, I was also having to watch South Carolina destroy A&M.
That was
So it
brutal.
was just, oh yeah, man. I just wanted to throw the TV. If Clemson starts to fall apart, we've already seen some decommitments from guys who had been committed for a while, some of them for a while, and they've
Mhm.
decommitted. Do we see any big players hit the transfer portal for the Tigers just because they're tired of everything? They're like, hey, man, thought things were going good, but I'm going to cash out. Do you think we see that? And would you even be willing to say who?
Yeah. It wouldn't surprise me. Well, certain names wouldn't surprise me. I like during our show, like we try not to speculate too much on names, specifically. Um, but I do know that there is definitely probably some unrest among some stars on the team. Um, Now, whether that parlays into them choosing to enter the transfer portal, we'll see. I think you'll definitely lose guys. That's the reality of college football.
Sure.
These days. But as far as like your big name guys, you know, I have my worries or suspicions, not anything based on any like inside knowledge. Um, and so I think the majority of this team is still bought in. I want to believe that, and that they are still locked into the long term projection of this of this program. But at the end of the day, you can't rule out anything these days because of the prevalence of NIL and the fact that Clemson as a roster has a lot of guys that would start for a lot of Power Five schools, and you know that's that's going to be enticing for other programs. They Clemson already had to deal with, um, you know, outside agents, I should say, trying to lure their stars into the transfer portal. Especially on defense, and so that's going to be something that happens again this offseason when these programs smell blood in the water. That they're going to pounce, and they've already started to do it with Clemson's recruiting class, as you mentioned. So while I do think the overall the majority of this team is still bought in, I can't rule out guys potentially transferring and maybe a big name here or there because you never know. And these guys came here to expecting to compete for championships and building up to that. And as it stands right now, you're looking at not making the playoff for the fourth season in a row. So
Yeah. And unless something crazy goes on, it's pretty much a done deal. You're not going to the ACC championship.
yeah,
So it's just like so many steps backward. It's getting kind of odd. Bo Collins, when he hit the transfer portal, went to Notre Dame. By the way, he's the leading receiver.
yes,
They are
he is.
definitely, they're definitely a playoff team at this point. The schedule is quite favorable for them. The only ranked team they have to play right now left for the rest of the season is not Florida State, definitely not Southern Cal, but it's Army at this point. So it looks like unless they just absolutely lay a golden turd, they are going to the college football playoff.
And
And
they
both
beat Louisville at home, so they were able to
they
do
did.
that.
Yeah. So you have Bo Collins transferring out, and they keep in touch with guys. They're just because they transfer, it doesn't mean they're not friends anymore. It's like going to
Right.
work somewhere else, and you still have friends back at your old place. They're probably going. So how's South Bend treating you? And so on. So I have a few people I have my eyes on. I'll throw this one out there, even though he's not a starter. Keith Adams Jr. I wouldn't be shocked if he hit the transfer portal. The other night I was like, no offense to Jay Haynes, but I was like, why are we running him on a power run, like third down and one, third down and two? He's openly not a power guy. He's a speed guy. And if you're not running Mafia, you're going to run Keith Adams Jr. You just wonder how long legacy, being part of that Clemson legacy, his dad, Keith Adams, Sr., the great linebacker. You just kind of wonder how long that will keep him here. So that's one player I'm concerned about, but a few others I have my eye on. So, Jordan, tell us, where can we find you guys? I mean, I know I've talked about it, but tell everybody where we can find y'all.
Yeah, of course. You can find me and Tiger Paul Craven. Hopefully, you guys went and watched his segment as well. Over on Clemson at the Voice of College Football. If you want to, there's a lot to type, so you could type Clemson VOCFB or any sort of combination of those words, and it'll pop up. We do the All In show every Wednesday at 8 p.m. Eastern time, and we also go live after every Clemson game, and we have a long post-game show and chop it up with all of you guys. So feel free to hop on over there after you finish this video and give a like, subscribe if you like the content. And of course, you can find me on X, Twitter, whatever you want to call it, at down below my beautiful face at Jobo0209. And feel free to give me a follow if you want to.
Yeah, absolutely. Y'all go find them, let them know that you saw them on the channel, and subscribe. Remember, subscribing is free. The sweetest words in the English language, free. So I hope you would do that. Folks, if you like what you're watching today, of course, I'm talking about Clemson, right? I mean, you see the garb around me. But I do talk about other football teams. One of my most viewed videos recently, it was a video on the Big 12 where I had a guest on, and I'm still trying to figure that one out. But anyway, I guess I might need to be doing me some Big 12 videos. But if you like talking college football as well as Clemson football, I hope you'll subscribe to this channel. Make sure you subscribe to them. Folks, you take care of yourself. Even though it may not be great, even though it may not be 16 or 18, it's still always good to be a Tiger. Go Tigers.